Welcome to The Detail. I'm your host, Cathy Antunes, and you are listening to The Detail on WSLR 96.5 LPFM in Sarasota, Florida, and WBPV 100.1 LPFM in Bradenton, Florida. The views and opinions of hosts, guests, callers on WSLR are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of WSLR staff, administration, or volunteers. With me today is John Simon, who is a retired attorney from the Chicago area who has been engaged kind of just like me. John, when I saw what was going on politically in this area, I was like, what?
What?
What is this? So John Simon is here to share his insights, his citizen engagement. This is much along the lines of what Benjamin Franklin said when he asked what kind of government are you giving us? And he said, a republic if you can keep it. Right. So, keeping it means we need citizens who are at the table, citizens who are watching what our government is doing or what they're not doing. So, John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, your background and when you moved here, why you moved here, and how you got involved.
Well, I was practicing law in Chicago, and I made the decision that I was going to move to Florida. And initially, I started out in Boca Raton, and I was going to spend 8 months a year in Boca and 4 months in Chicago. And then I met a woman here in Sarasota. It's always a woman.
It's always the power of the woman.
It's always a woman. And she said she wasn't going to move anywhere else. So here I am. And
I don't blame her. Yeah.
That was 7 years ago.
Okay. You're still with her?
Still with her.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We live right downtown.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So what kind of law did you practice?
I was a corporate tax lawyer, but I actually had a specialty in affordable housing. I represented most of the big banks and insurance companies investing in low-income housing throughout the country.
And so you sit on the city's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee?
I do.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a whole nother show. We won't. But I would like to actually, I want you to come back.
I'm always happy to talk about affordable housing.
Yeah. And that's going to be what should be a key campaign issue. But John, basically what we're talking about today is different jurisdictions have different rules regarding who can run for office. And in the city of Sarasota, there are, qualification metrics that a candidate has to meet. They're not onerous. They're not tough to meet for most people who actually live in the city and, want to run. But you found a candidate that had been qualified, meaning they were accepted as a candidate, Jamie Loomis.
Yes.
She is a professional, like physical therapy, I believe is her work.
She's a doctor of physical therapy.
Okay. And she submitted paperwork, and she was then listed as a candidate and slated to be on the ballot. Tell us what intrigued you, or why did you start looking at city elections, number one, and what was it that was problematic about her candidacy?
Well, if I can back up a little bit.
Sure.
I was living quietly in Sarasota, and it was a nice, quiet seaside place.
Living the dream.
And then all of a sudden, the city decided with El Melvin that they were going to start having 100 decibel rock concerts outside our building until midnight. And I went to El Melvin and said, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. And they politely told me to take a hike. And so the same thing was being done by the Gator Club and later Classico, having these, if you are outside in 100 decibel level sound, it can hurt your hearing, and it actually rattles the windows in the building. So I decided that I'd delve into this a little bit more, and I started doing public records requests regarding these rock concerts, and I found out some interesting things there, which I can go into if you want.
Let's table that for now.
Yeah. And so I found some things that I didn't like, let me put it that way.
Okay.
And so I started to get more interested in the government of Sarasota, and that sort of coincided with my retirement. And so I started going to the commission meetings. I started going to almost any meeting I could go to and learning about the city. Mm-hmm. And I've learned a lot.
Mm-hmm. How long? So how many years?
Well, it's probably 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been watching for 3 years, and this is typically what happens. There's a fire in your backyard, whether it's literally something about your home, which it was for you, or it's just something that you really care about. For me, it was kids being able to play baseball.
Yeah.
So there's a fire in your backyard. There's something that grabs your attention, and then you start looking under the hood of your government. And as you said, you found through public records requests, you found things that really concerned you. So that's how you got started. So it's been 3 years. You started going to city meetings. You're on the city advisory board for affordable housing. And so tell me about the election issue.
So I hope that I've developed a reputation for wanting government accountability, for wanting efficient government, transparency, and clean government. Mm-hmm. So the first week in June, maybe a little earlier, I don't remember exactly, Ron Cashton, who's a former city commission candidate, came to me, and we had a discussion, and he suggested that maybe Jamie Loomis, who is the candidate for the commission, was not qualified for the office. Mm-hmm. So, I discussed it with Ron for a few minutes, and then we sort of left it there, and I went off and I did my own research. Mm-hmm. And the city charter requires two things of a commission candidate. The first is that they be a full-time resident of the city of Sarasota for 1 year before they would take office. Mm-hmm. So the current commission candidates would take office November 6th, 2026. Okay. So whoever was going to run for the commission had to be living in Sarasota starting on November 5, 2025. And they also had to be a, quote, qualified elector, end quote, in the city of Sarasota. A qualified elector is somebody who is registered to vote in Sarasota County. Okay. So what Ron indicated from his investigation of the records, and what I subsequently found out, was that Jamie Loomis was not registered to vote in Sarasota County.
That's kind of amazing for somebody who wants to run for office not to be registered.
Well, let me back up a second. She actually, I believe, had her driver's license address in Vero Beach. Uh-huh. And on May 4th, 2025, remember, she had to have been a registered voter as of November 5, 2025. But as of May 4th, 2026, she changed her address on her driver's license, and that triggered a registration in Sarasota County.
Okay. So she was probably, I don't know, but if she's got Vero Beach on her driver's license, she might have been registered there.
I think she was registered there, but that wasn't
as a voter.
That wasn't the right requirement under the city charter. So I had to do some legal research to figure out what a qualified elector was, which I did.
Yeah, yeah. So it's basically someone who's registered to vote, and this person was not registered to vote in Sarasota County. And that's that's a pretty basic requirement.
It is pretty basic.
Yeah. How did it come to be? So you did research and you realized this. And I mean, apparently, because it's the city clerk.
It's the city, it's the obligation of the city clerk to determine qualification for the city commission.
So apparently that was not somebody dropped the ball there.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened, but I determined the first week in June to file a challenge to Jamie Loomis's candidacy. And on June 9th, I went into the office of the city clerk. Shayla Griggs, who's the city clerk, was not there, and I talked to Lori Rivers, who was her deputy, and I said, I have a challenge to Jamie Loomis's candidacy, and she said to me that they've already determined that Jamie Loomis was a qualified candidate. So I assume that they were relying on information provided by Ron Turner's office, who's the supervisor of elections, but I don't know that.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't assume that. Ron Turner, I don't know, they run a pretty tight ship over there. But anyway, so you put this, so you're there with a written challenge in hand.
Correct.
And you told Ms. Rivers, I'm challenging this candidate. And
Correct.
she tells you, no, she's fine.
Right.
Then what happens?
Then I don't know exactly what happened, but I believe that Shayla Griggs.
Well, but what happened was didn't you give her
I gave her the challenge, yes, and left
her,
the office.
Please read this. And the only reason I want to make that point is a lot of people, if they went in and said, just because of the authority of the office, a lot of people, if they went in and said, hey, this person, I don't think they're qualified, and they were told by a public official, yes, we are, we've checked her out, they might just walk away.
Correct, but I was sure I was right.
Yeah.
I knew
you had written it down.
I knew my analysis was correct.
Okay.
I looked at the voting records. I checked my information with Ron Turner's office. I'd done the legal research, so I was sure that my challenge was correct.
Yeah. So you gave the written challenge.
I gave the written challenge. I dropped off a copy at the city manager's office, and
okay.
I gave a copy to Joe Polzak's office, who's the city attorney.
Okay. And so what happened next?
So I don't know exactly because I was out of town, but I understand. Well, the next thing that happened to me was I filed the challenge on Tuesday the 9th. On Thursday the 11th, I got an email from Shayla Griggs saying that there had been a meeting with Shayla Griggs, Joe Polzak, Jamie Loomis, and she had agreed to withdraw her candidacy.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, she didn't put up a fight. There was no really fight to have.
I don't think there was a fight to have.
Cut and dried thing. And it's odd in a way. I mean, you definitely have very engaged candidates. I was one of them who file on the deadline, who were like mull it over and they jump in. I wouldn't call Jamie Loomis an engaged citizen in the city of Sarasota. At least I've never seen or heard that she's been active.
No, absolutely. I mean, what I could determine from primarily from social media was it appears as of the time that she filed for her candidacy, which was in May of 2026, she had lived in the city of Sarasota for less than 1 year. That was okay because if she lived in Sarasota for a year by November 6, 2026, she would still be eligible. But her social media showed no engagement in politics, no interest, no city issues, nothing like that. And
what did it show? Was there anything remarkable?
No, I mean it showed that she was a physical therapist, and a lot of the social media still showed her address in Vero Beach.
Okay, and the reason I think this, is important, and I do this show because local politics matters, and there's a lot of games that are being played, and the more we know and the more we watch, the better government we're going to get. And what concerns me is the bought candidate or the kind of puppet type candidate who's there because they've been recruited, not because they themselves have actually demonstrated any interest or engagement or service with the community, with the city, but they're there because somebody wants to put them there.
Absolutely.
And that, for me, is the more interesting story. We don't need, quote unquote, empty suits sitting there who are doing the bidding, on their cell phone being texted what to do with a vote. We don't need somebody who's been given a playbook. We need people who have good judgment, who've been engaged, and who are going to listen to residents. So for me, Ms. Loomis, when I heard about this, I was like, okay, why'd she run? Because there's nothing to indicate that she herself has any real interest in the city. So what are your thoughts there? Because you've been watching the city race, and she's shown up for debates.
Well, at least one.
At least one. Well, the big one.
Yeah.
Right? CCNA.
So I think she was recruited as a candidate. Her primary qualifications were she was a woman, she was a registered Democrat, and she had a picture that bore a faint passing resemblance to Jen Ahern Koch.
Yeah, similar hair.
Similar hair.
Actually, similar hair, similar eyes, similar skin tone. You could see how someone who didn't know them well could confuse them.
An uneducated voter could easily be confused.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that was the purpose. Okay.
I mean, because Jen Ahern Koch's look is a pretty distinctive look. But you heard Ms. Loomis at the debate at the City Coalition of City Neighborhood Association.
Yes.
That meeting, which is really, for those who don't know, the Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations is an incredible group that's been in existence for decades, where the presidents of every neighborhood association in the city or their representatives sit at the table, talk about city issues, have presentations about what's coming. So in terms of an important debate, you don't get any more important than the Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations. So what was that like? I mean, did she have allies there? Who was?
So, first of all, I think she had been coached some on some of the issues. It was clear that she had some passing knowledge of some of the issues. There were a number of issues where she said that I'll just have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
But realizing that the CCNA forum was, I believe, June 6th, which was just before I was going to file the challenge. And I'd already determined to file the challenge. So I went to the forum, and I figured I would watch her carefully because she may, by her actions, show who her political allies were. What I saw was she never left the side of candidate Rob Romanecki. He took her around the room, or I don't know whether he took her, but she followed him around the room. She was introduced to people by him. She never left his side. There was a mingling period before the actual forum. And during that mingling period, she never left his side.
Yeah. Okay. And that's interesting because, one of the things for people to know, I administer a group on Facebook called Citizens for Sarasota County. It's actually inspired by a friend of mine who lives in Virginia, in a rural area of Virginia. And in that county, they have a citizen group that their agendas come out 2 weeks ahead of time. The citizens meet. They decide what they think of the agenda items. And they then tell the commission, they send their representatives and say, this is what we want you to do. Kind of like CCNA, but there's a very particular process that they do. I was like, that's really a great thing. But county agendas come out like days ahead of time. It's ridiculous. There's no prep time. So anyway, on this social media group, we do our best to keep it local. You got your Sarasota County residents, and talk about local issues so that people aren't blindsided, so they have some prep time. And, we also talk about candidates and elections and what's coming on down the pike. There's a whole bot issue with using social media to swing elections. But we have fake profiles that are at work in our local elections, too. And what was interesting is there was a profile that I was made aware of, and this person, nobody can find who they actually are. You know, we sometimes look at profiles and remove them when it's clear the person doesn't live here, or they're just like anonymous. So one of these profiles announced on social media that Jamie Loomis began her candidacy, or it was announced in a certain place. Are you familiar with that?
I only know, I've heard the rumors. I don't know particularly.
Okay, I'm going to read it, but it was essentially, let me see if I can pull this up, that her here it is. Okay. So this is like an this is written by somebody who wants to appear like they're a woman who lives in the county, but we can't actually, south of the trail, whatever so south of the trail. And they basically said that Loomis has lived here for 4 years. She has not, okay, wait, this is a different one. They announced the elimination of her candidacy. I have to get the other screenshot, but essentially that her candidacy was announced during a PAC. Oh, here it is. As far as why she decided to run, this is Jamie Loomis. Her candidacy was announced at a Chris Volker PAC run event at the Sugar Bar. So what do you think that says? So, and I'm like, just so you all know, I know, okay, I'm reading something from this profile that wants to be anonymous, but this is someone who clearly wants to influence our election and is saying that Loomis was at a Chris Volker PAC event, and we're going to be talking about that PAC.
But what we do know, I don't know where her candidacy was. Personally, I don't know where her candidacy was announced. It wouldn't surprise me that it's at the Sugar Bar. Mm-hmm. What I do know is that her nominating petition was signed by Commissioners Kyle Batee and Liz Alpert, and it was also signed by Chris Volker and her husband,
Kirk. Mm-hmm.
Kirk.
Okay. And so this PAC.
And I do know that this PAC is supportive of Rob Romanecki.
Well, Rob Romanecki's donated to this PAC personally back in 2024. So as my audience knows, I focus on dark money in local elections. I research it. I track it back to the donor. The whole point of political PACs in this day and age, post Citizens United, is plausible deniability for the donor. What does that mean? They want to be able to say, oh, it wasn't me. They want to be able to put unlimited money into our elections, and they want to be able to say, I didn't do that, typically. So in May of 2024, there was a PAC that was started at the state level, and it was called the Sarasota Arts and Cultural Coalition. And at that time, when I was doing my initial research, that the PAC had taken in about $123,000, and you've got an active in city race. So the first problem with that is if you are looking to influence a municipal election, your PAC is supposed to be registered with the city, not Tallahassee.
Yes.
Okay. So, but as a practical matter, there's zero enforcement. That nobody is watching the store, just like nobody was watching the store about her candidacy.
Right. And nobody's watching the store with respect to a bunch of things.
Okay. So we'll talk about the PAC, and then I want to get to that, a bunch of things. So this PAC, you've got Chris and Kirk Volker, and Ms. Volker and her husband owned a couple of restaurants in town. You've got Kim Githler and her significant other, Larry Saslaw, giving $5,000. The recently departed Charles Githler God bless Charles, gave $2,500. Kojo Restaurant gave $2,500. Pat Neal gave $5,000. William McComb, who serves as a Selby board member, I don't know if he's current, he definitely did in the past, he gave $5,000. And Ronnie Sugar gave $25,000 to this PAC. So what's interesting is Sugar and Volker both serve on the Downtown Improvement District, which is,
yes,
an advisory board that is actually charged with distributing extra tax money that merchants are charged to enhance downtown.
It's actually the property owners, I believe.
No, right? I don't. Oh, well, right. Okay. The property owners, a merchant could be a tenant.
Right.
You're right. But I'll tell you what, in a triple net lease, the merchants are paying that tax.
Sure.
Okay. So that PAC, and the other thing is Dan Claremont is also involved with this PAC. So that PAC then changed their name, and their name became, People for Arts and Culture in Sarasota. And, more contributions have come in. And this is the thing with these PACs. These PACs always choose a name you can't argue with, right? Who's against arts and culture?
Sure.
Everybody wants that. So the most recent filings, so this is updated research I'm looking at, show, more contributions, but there's a $25,000 contribution that came in from the Friends of Sarasota Arts and Culture. Okay. So you've got that original 25 grand from Ronnie Sugar, and then you've got this 25 grand from Friends of Sarasota Arts and Culture. Friends of Sarasota Arts and Culture is a Florida corporation, nonprofit, that the principal officers are Chris Volker, Kirk Volker, and Ronnie Sugar. So you've got the Volkers and Mr. Sugar. Mr. Sugar is associated with at least 50 grand in this PAC that's morphed. And then you've got the Volkers, who are associated with 32 grand at least. And I still need to pick through. But, by any definition, they want to be kingmakers in city elections, in my world. My opinion.
Absolutely. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So your thoughts?
Well, I think they represent, the special interests in Sarasota tend to be the developers and the restaurant and bar owners. Mm-hmm. And special interests have gotten most of what they want from the city commission. Mm-hmm. I think there are candidates out there who represent other voices, and I think what they're trying to do is what the PAC and the running of Jamie Loomis is an attempt to keep the other voices out of the city commission. That's my view. With tons of money. Yeah. So, if you're going to be running, we have campaign finance rules. Yeah.
And for candidates, the state preempted our local constraints on campaign finance rules. Locally in the city of Sarasota, our charter says that the limit's $200 and it has to be an actual human. So this nonprofit corporation tool that's being used, and frankly, it's being used also to completely hide donors, is a way to get around, campaign finance rules. The state came in and said, no. Now it's the state rules which allow corporate donations, and the limit is $1,000. That's to a campaign. But to a PAC, you can give as much as you want.
Absolutely.
And now in the state of Florida, if you incorporate a corporation, that corporation can give as much as it wants. And, this Friends of Sarasota Arts and Culture Corporation has directors. I mean, I'll give it to them there. They didn't incorporate anonymously, but I've seen corporations in Florida now anonymously incorporate, which didn't used to be the case, that are also giving in local campaigns, PACs that are influencing local campaigns.
Let me throw.
Can I just finish?
Yeah, sure.
For me, the fact that there's somebody acting as a political sock puppet on Facebook saying that her candidacy was announced by Chris Volker at a PAC function. The fact that Rob Romanecki gave $1,000 to this PAC in the fall of 2024, the fact that you witnessed Rob Romanecki, stewarding her at
the CCNA
at this debate, just says to me, Ms. Loomis, I'm very concerned that you're just going to be a mouthpiece for Chris Volker, Ronnie Sugar, and the people that are basically trying to put you in office by bombarding the electorate with mailers, robocalls, and all of that.
I actually think it's a little bit different than that.
Okay.
I think the purpose was to dilute the votes that would have otherwise gone to other people.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another way. We saw in presidential campaigns, you can try to elevate somebody in terms of the number of votes they get, but another tactic is you try to depress the vote count for your opponent.
Yes.
And to your point, with the physical resemblance,
yes,
people
Democrat, a woman. I think the intent was to dilute the votes going to other people. Very simple.
Yeah.
There's another thing I think that's going on in the background here.
Okay.
And it affects a smaller group of voters. But when you listen to the DID meetings, as I have, and to some extent to the city commission meetings, a priority for Ronnie Sugar and perhaps for Chris Volker is to tax the residents in the downtown improvement district.
Okay.
The property owners in the downtown improvement district had a referendum some years ago and agreed to be taxed.
You're talking about because residents are property owners. You're talking about
the commercial property owners agreed to be taxed.
Okay.
Residents in the downtown improvement district today are not taxed. But
they're not taxed with a DID tax.
They're not taxed with a separate DID tax, which could be as much as 2 mills and would be a 20% increase, give or take a 20% increase in the property taxes for homeowners in homesteaded or not homesteaded in the downtown improvement district.
Mm-hmm.
What most people don't understand, and I've done the legal research and confirmed it, that the commission itself can approve a DID tax. So
they don't need a referendum.
They don't need a referendum of the homeowners in the DID. Mm-hmm. So if you got a favorable, I believe, although I don't know for sure, that Liz Alpert and Kyle Batty would favor the DID tax currently. Mm-hmm. And if they got a third member, the commission by itself could tax the residents in the DID. And I think that is a priority for Ronnie Sugar and maybe Chris Volker.
Yeah, so, if you want, so the DID for most people don't even know what that is.
Correct, yes.
Right? So the DID is the Downtown Improvement District. There's an advisory committee, and this committee has included people like Mark Kaufman, who is a developer focused on the city, Eileen Hampshire. Who
it has to be property owners in the district.
Well, theoretically, they made an exception for a tenant
for Harmony Cruising.
Yeah, which honestly, I don't know that was such a good thing to do. I'm sure she's lovely. That's not the point. The point is, people. This is supposed to be people who are actual property owners, commercial property owners. So Ron Soto has served on the DID. Ernie Ritz, the owner of the Gator Club, has served on the DID. Like I said, Eileen Hampshire has served on the DID. Chris Volker, Ronnie Sugar, the gentleman who is now the Waldorf that's going to be built at the Zenith building.
Sadek Omar.
Okay, he's a new DID member. So this is kind of like this sleepy little board that really doesn't get a lot of attention, but they have a budget and they have some power. And I think in the past, one of the really concerning things was how the city basically has put somebody there to assist the DID. It used to be John Moran, and John got a very nominal salary. But now it's someone who works for the city, and it's almost like they work for her. You know, there's some concern that she's exerting outsized influence, but also the DID money was basically appropriated by the city to pay for the trolley.
Some of the DID money.
Yeah. A lot, yeah, but it was a good chunk.
Yeah.
So there's a way that the DID money can be kind of a slush fund for the city. The parameters for administering it are now somewhat sketchy in terms of compliance. And like I said, if you want to see the dynamics or the values or how these folks treat each other or operate, you got to watch DID meetings. And in terms of who the would-be kingmakers in a city election, which clearly Volker and Sugar want to be with their, donations and their PAC, I think city residents need to really understand how they operate and what they care about and how they treat their other board members, too.
Absolutely. I think one of the problems that I see in Sarasota is tremendous apathy among both voters and homeowners, and those are separate things because there's a lot of people who particularly own downtown condominiums who are not voters in Sarasota. They vote in other places in the country. And then when I talk to people downtown, they're often apathetic about, I don't know, I don't educate myself,
Well, Florida, when people move here, I think it's like they want to live the life. They want to live the dream. And the dream doesn't include looking at city commission meetings. That wouldn't be my dream.
Until what the city commission does affects you
exactly
significantly.
Until there's a fire in your backyard.
Yes.
Yeah. And then that's when you actually, baptism by fire, that's when you actually become a real resident.
Right.
When you really start paying attention. But I think for most people, they can live here 2, 5, 10, 15 years before.
30 years.
Yeah, right. Before they do that, before they realize. So let's talk about the potential for this tax. Because I think you're connecting really important dots here. That's actually a pretty significant amount of money for an owner.
It is a significant amount of money, both for the DID and for property owners. So my significant other and I did a back of the envelope calculation, and we think it could be as much as 20% of our property taxes.
Really?
Just if it's $2 million, that's about what it would be. And just by order of magnitude, I think the city's share of property tax is about $3.75 million, and this would be adding as much as $2 million to that.
So $5.75 million total. Where are you getting the $2 million number? Is that something they've talked about?
It's a statutory number. It's the maximum statutory number.
Okay.
And I would think that if they're going to impose the tax, that
the potential.
The potential is for the maximum. Why wouldn't you do the maximum?
Well, it could be the camel's nose in the tent.
It could.
They could start out, well, it's just $0.25 of a mil, or it's just half a mil.
Just to put a question to bed, I wondered off the top of my head, because I don't know as much about Florida property taxes as I should, whether the increase would be subject to the 3% cap on increases in property taxes if you're homesteaded, or the 5%. It isn't, because the cap is on the increased and assessed valuation. It is not on the millage rate.
Okay. So that's why we call it the detail.
That's the devil is always in the details.
This is where the devil hangs out.
And so much of what's happening in the city is the details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the thing I find is that once people see it, they can't unsee it.
Right.
So let's be clear. Volker, Sugar, Eileen Hampshire, who are the other two DID members? There are 5.
Sadek Omar.
Yeah.
And Wayne Rubin.
Okay. Wayne and I served on the Charter Review Board together. So they have had discussion about taxing
They have had
residents.
discussions about taxing the residents. Ronnie Sugar at one point gave a report to the commission where he suggested taxing the residents in the DID.
He initiated the discussion.
I don't know.
That's so interesting.
I don't know whether there is a majority of the DID board that would be in favor of the tax, but I think that would be the case. And then you need a majority of the commission.
It's really the buck stops at the commission.
Correct.
Which is okay. So if Volker and Sugar through their PAC activity want to influence the city commission race, and they've made it clear they'd like to go after city downtown residents and tax them to fluff up the DID numbers, to fluff up their budget.
You have to remember that it benefits their business. It's putting costs on the taxpayers that indirectly benefit their businesses because it makes it a cleaner, nicer downtown. There's a bigger slush fund.
Well, I think they would argue that it benefits everybody, and
they certainly would.
They could be right.
And they could be
about
right.
that. Except what I haven't seen or heard about the DID is that they really are actually in control of this money. I think as a practical matter, the city basically took this portion of money for the trolley, and the DID just kind of rolled over. They didn't do anything.
I wasn't watching then, but I think that's what I understand happened. But I think the DID board has pretty good control over the money. They just made some significant changes regarding flower baskets, and the city went with their changes.
I think I may disagree with you there.
You're allowed.
Yeah, I know. I think that
it's your show.
I know. I'm not convinced. I think that there's kind of acquiescence to doing what they're told. I think that the flower basket, it's interesting. Those flower baskets, they cost money.
$180,000.
Yeah, but this is the kind of detail and care that give a city its look, its feel. I'm not saying that's the only way you can do it, but it has been very lovely. Now, the ones that hang out on top of the street lamps, there are a couple like that. That doesn't make a lot of sense. They should be at street level, eye level. But I don't know that it's really a good idea to just get rid of all of them. But then again, like I said, this is something that most people aren't paying attention to. But because these folks have put bank into trying to influence this race, we all really have to pay attention.
Absolutely. And the flower baskets are an interesting thing because I think most people weren't paying attention to it. And then when it got around that they were going to remove the flower baskets, all of a sudden there were a bunch of people who didn't like it.
Yeah. And like I said, these are, there's this broken windows theory of crime.
Absolutely.
Right? In New York City, when in neighborhoods where there were tons of broken windows, the crime rate went through the roof. It was really high. Yeah. Why? Well, because the criminals knew there was nobody in the building actually being able to observe them. And when you fixed the broken windows, the crime rate went down. So likewise, it's the little things that set the table in a city for its environment, which is why when people hear you're getting rid of the flower baskets, they don't like that.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. Tell me about, let's go back to the things you noticed when you went into public records at the beginning of your advocacy. And I got to say, I know there are people out there when it comes to noise, because you started looking because of 100 decibel concerts outside your building. And a lot of people will say, well, you moved to the city. You knew there was going to be noise. This isn't that kind of noise. It's a different level.
This is just blasting noise. And it was run for the benefit of a private restaurant. The city was closing off streets, and a private restaurant, and then other private restaurants got involved in the same concept. So when Al Melvin in particular told me to take a hike, I decided that I was going to look into all of these block parties, and there have been several, have have an application that's public record, have an alcohol permit that's public record, have insurance certificates that are public record. And so I started asking for those. And what I found out, it was an interesting thing. And we can take this 4th of July Gator Club celebration on Lemon Avenue as an example. Okay. There are two ways to have these block parties and sell alcohol. One is that a bar like the Gator Club can sell alcohol under its own license. It has to go to the state and get a special block party 3-day license, but that's $25, I think, and a simple thing to get. Alternatively, you can get a not-for-profit to get an alcohol permit for 3 days. Again, it's $25, I think, and it's an easy thing to get. So when I started making public records requests, I found that a lot of the block parties and other special events, including J.D. Hamill Park and anything that would sell alcohol, was getting a alcoholic beverage permit from a not-for-profit, which is called Downtown SRQ Enrichment, Inc., which is run by Ron Soto and Darcy Jacob. Okay. And it has never been clear to me why that is, why restaurants and bars are not doing this under their own license instead of a not-for-profit alcohol license. When you get a not-for-profit alcohol license, state law is very, very clear that all net profits from the sale of alcohol have to be retained by the not-for-profit. It's in block letters under when you make the application to the state for this alcohol permit, it's in block letters. You can't share your profits with anybody else. These events, the event July 4th, for example, is called the Gator Club 4th of July party. And yet the alcohol permit was obtained by Downtown SRQ Enrichment, Inc., a not-for-profit.
Do they report to GuideStar? Can you look in GuideStar and see their financial reporting? They're supposed to keep the alcohol.
The 990, the form, IRS form 990 is their report. It's online, and it's impossible to tell what's really happening. I think what's happening is when you look at the application for the July 4th party, for example, the promoter is, I believe, the general manager of the Gator Club. Okay. So I think that they're
well, I mean, it's got the name of Gator Club on it, so it makes sense. They're promoting it.
So I think what's happening is they're in various ways sharing in the alcohol profits in violation of state law. But I can't prove that. Well, but it sure looks like it.
But you should be able to know it should be transparent.
It should be.
And you're a tax attorney. You spent your career in corporate tax law. So you're not you have expertise in this arena.
Let me take it one step further because it's kind of interesting. So the city is in the process of adopting a new special events ordinance.
Okay.
First of all, let me say that I met with the city attorney. I've met with a couple of commissioners, and I explained this to them, and they all said, "Oh, this is terrible. We've got to investigate it." And of course, nothing happened.
They don't do anything. Yeah.
Nothing happened. So I went to the city and I said, I don't know for sure whether the not-for-profit is sharing impermissibly and illegally sharing alcohol profits with for-profit entities.
Merchants.
But when you're adopting this new ordinance, why don't we do a couple things like have the city have the ability to review all the contracts between the not-for-profit and the for-profit? Why don't we have the city have the ability to audit what happened at these parties, at these block parties, at the expense of the applicant? What do you think happened?
Nothing.
Nothing. That seems common sense to me.
Of course. Just me looking at this, like, you're going to tell me that a Gator Club 4th of July party, which is getting basically their ability to serve alcohol in the street, that's what this is.
Correct.
Okay, so they're pulling a permit, but they're not
The city's
pulling
giving a permit. The city's closing the streets.
Yeah.
The city's providing other services, which are paid for by the applicant, but the city's giving them all of those things.
Yeah, and basically the city's also taken on some liability by allowing outdoor drinking, I would think.
That's another interesting point.
Okay, let me finish that.
Okay.
We'll get to this. So you're going to tell me that a business that's a bar is partnering with a nonprofit basically for the purpose of getting a permit, and that a bar is going to give their alcohol receipts to the nonprofit? I don't believe it.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just
I don't know how
absurd.
you cannot believe that, Kathy.
I know. So, yeah, okay.
So,
and this nonprofit is basically reporting their 990s in a way where you really can't. I mean, do they have income? Do they have?
Yeah, they have some income. But
is it consistent with all these block parties?
I can't tell.
Beer?
I can't tell.
Tough.
I do know. I have done further investigation.
Yeah.
And early on, I talked to one of the guys who used to own El Melvin. And I asked him these questions, and he said, "We always contributed to the not-for-profit."
Okay, so they get a piece of the action.
Yes.
Yeah, which basically means they're not getting the alcohol receipts.
I think that's correct.
Because they're supposed to get 100%.
Let me go back to the city liability because it's very interesting.
Yes.
Until this recent July 4th block party, the city requires that the sponsor of the party get a certificate of insurance for, I think, $2 million of liability. Okay. And the city, when I first started looking, the certificate of insurance was obtained in the name of an entity, as far as I could tell, because you can look at the Secretary of State's records, in the name of an entity that didn't exist.
Okay.
And the city, I believe, was not getting a certificate of additional insurance. Okay. As things went along, the city, the certificate of insurance continued until this last week to be in the name of an entity that didn't exist. And then the city was getting a certificate of additional insurance, which insured it against the activities of the insured, and the insured was an entity that didn't exist. It was, in my view, bizarre. Well,
and doesn't that, if anything actually happened, the reality is there's no coverage because
I'm not an insurance lawyer, but I think I wasn't an insurance lawyer, but I think it would mean that if there was ever a claim, the insurer would deny liability.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to go one step further?
Well, we only have a few minutes.
Okay. Well, you go ahead.
Yeah. No, you finish your thought.
I was just going to say, Ron Soto, who is an officer of the not-for-profit and sometimes a promoter
and a merchant.
Sometimes a promoter of these events, is also somehow involved with writing the insurance.
Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. So much more to explore if we had time. But the bottom line is elections are coming up. You need to make sure your registration is current. Please vote, but please know what you're doing in these local elections.
Absolutely.
Yeah, please
Absolutely.
know what you're doing because
get educated. If it's not bad until something happens.
And then it's bad.
And then it's bad.
And
you don't want to be in that position.
Okay, everybody. Sarasota Memorial Hospital hosts a monthly mobility support group the first Wednesday of each month from 3 to 4:30 p.m. This group provides education and support for the physically challenged, and it's open to all persons and caregivers dealing with limited mobility. The group location is the Sarasota Memorial Hospital, Sarasota campus on Arlington Street, the third floor rehabilitation classroom. More information is available at SMH.com. Stay tuned for more public affairs programming. And thanks so much for listening, everybody. You can check out Citizens for Sarasota County for lots of election information and public policy information. And I actually have a special favor to ask. If you get mailers from political committees and you can scan them and upload them, join the group and share the mailers that you're getting, because it's going to help us all track who the donors are and understand who's trying to listen to us. So Citizens for Sarasota County is on Facebook, and please go there. And if you'd like to share information, it's a great place for all of us to be informed. You've been listening to The Detail on WSLR 96.5 LPFM in Sarasota, Florida, and WBPV 100.1 LPFM in Bradenton, Florida.